It is said that after the Monkey King Sun Wukong made trouble in heaven, he was trapped under the 5 elements mountain by the Buddha. Winter passed and spring came, and in the blink of an eye, 500 years passed. On this day, the Buddha said to the bodhisattvas in the Thunder Monastery on Mount Ling, I observe that in the southern continent, there is much indulgence in pleasure and causing harm, with many killings and disputes. I have the Tripitaka Sutra, which can persuade people to do good. I want to send it to the eastern land, but I am afraid that the beings there are ignorant and do not understand the essence of my Dharma, thus neglecting the true teachings of Buddhism. The Buddha looked around and then continued, we need someone with magical powers to go to the eastern land and find a person to endure hardships and travel thousands of miles to obtain the true sutras from me. Who among you will go on this journey? Guanyin Bodhisattva stepped forward and said, disciple is willing to go. The Buddha was delighted and instructed his disciples to take out a brocade kasaya and a 9-ringed monk's staff, which he handed to Guanyin. The Buddha then took out 3 hoops and handed them to Guanyin, saying, this treasure is called the tightening hoop. If you encounter powerful demons, you must persuade them to learn and follow the path of the scriptures along with the scriptures bearer. If they refuse to obey, you can put this hoop on their heads, recite a spell, and make them suffer from splitting headaches, forcing them to enter my door. Guanyin remembered these instructions, put away the kasaya and staff, bid farewell to the Buddha, and set off for the eastern land with the child of woodfish. As they were traveling, they suddenly came across the weak water of 3000, where the air was heavy with deathly silence. Guanyin couldn't help but frown and said, how will the scriptures bearer, a mere mortal, cross this river? While they were observing, they suddenly heard a loud noise from the water, and a monster with a green face, sharp teeth, red hair, and red beard leaped out. The demon wielded a magic staff, stirred up a gust of wind, and roared as it came ashore to capture Guanyin. The child of woodfish quickly wielded his iron rod to confront the monster. The two fought fiercely by the banks of the weak water. After dozens of rounds, neither side gained the upper hand. The child of woodfish pointed to the shore and said, my master is Guanyin of the South Sea, and we are on our way to the eastern land to find the scriptures bearer. Who are you, daring to block our path? The monster looked up and saw Guanyin. It quickly put away its magic staff and approached to bow down, saying, Bodhisattva, please forgive me. I was originally the Grand Marshal of the Lingxiao Palace, but because I accidentally broke a glass at the Peach Banquet, the Jade Emperor banished me to the mortal realm, and I turned into this appearance. Guanyin said, I have received the Buddha's instructions, and am going to the eastern land to find the scriptures bearer. Why don't you come into my fold, seek refuge in goodness, become a disciple of the scriptures bearer, and go to the western heaven to pay respects to the Buddha and seek the scriptures? When you succeed, you will be pardoned and reinstated in your original position. What do you think? The monster said, I am willing to seek refuge in the true path. Guanyin then gave him the tonsure ceremony, gave him a Dharma name, and called him Sand Wujing. From then on, Sand Wujing no longer harmed living beings and waited exclusively for the scriptures bearer. After bidding farewell to Guanyin, Sand Wujing and the child of woodfish continued on their way to the eastern land. After traveling for some time, they came across a tall mountain emitting a foul smell. As they were about to fly over the mountain, a monster suddenly appeared in a gust of wind. The monster rushed forward, without distinguishing between good and evil, and raised its weapons to attack Guanyin. The child of woodfish shouted, Evil creature, stop your rudeness. The two engaged in combat at the foot of the mountain. Just as they were fiercely fighting, Guanyin tossed down a lotus flower from midair, separating their weapons. The monster, seeing this, was startled and asked, Who are you, monk, daring to mock me? The child of woodfish shouted, This is my master, Guanyin Bodhisattva of the South Sea. Don't you recognize her? The monster quickly dropped its weapons and bowed to Guanyin, saying, Bodhisattva, please forgive me. I was originally the heavenly marshal in the Milky Way, but because I got drunk and harassed Chang'e at the Peach Banquet, the Jade Emperor punished me with 2,000 lashes and banished me to the mortal world. I unexpectedly reincarnated as a pig. Please, Bodhisattva, save me. Guanyin said, I have received the Buddha's instructions and am going to the Eastern land to find the scripture's bearer. Will you follow him as a disciple and journey to the Western heaven to seek the scriptures, thereby redeeming yourself from your sins? The monster eagerly agreed, I am willing to follow, I am willing to follow. Guanyin then gave him the tonsure ceremony, bestowed upon him a Dharma name, and called him Zhu Wuning. From then on, Zhu Wuning observed vegetarianism and waited exclusively for the scripture's bearer. Guanyin and Zhu Wuning bid farewell, and together with the child of Woodfish, they continued their journey to the Eastern land. After traveling for some time, they saw countless beams of golden light and auspicious signs, indicating that they had arrived at the Five Elements mountain. Guanyin saw the posters affixed to the mountain and couldn't help but sigh, the great sage equal to heaven, who caused trouble in heaven back then, is now trapped here. As she spoke, someone below the mountain shouted, Who's revealing my secrets? Guanyin descended the mountain to investigate and found a solitary stone monkey, trapped in a stone chest, able to speak, but unable to move. Guanyin asked, Are you surnamed Sun? Do you recognize me? Sun Wukong opened his fiery eyes and exclaimed, Of course I recognize you. You are the compassionate Guanyin Bodhisattva of the South Sea. The Buddha trapped me under this mountain for over 500 years. Please, Bodhisattva, save me. Guanyin said, Your sins are grave. If I were to rescue you, I fear you would cause trouble again. Sun Wukong pleaded, I have repented. Please, Guanyin, show me a way out. Guanyin then said, Since you have this intention, I will go to the eastern land of the great Tang dynasty to find a person to save you. You will follow him as a disciple and cultivate goodness. What do you think? Sun Wukong eagerly agreed, I am willing, I am willing. Guanyin was overjoyed and, bidding farewell to the child of Woodfish, continued eastward toward Chang'an of the Great Tang. Now, during the Tang dynasty, after Emperor Taizong experienced the turmoil of slaying the Dragon King and returned from the underworld to the mortal realm, he summoned his ministers and officials to organize the Water and Land Dharma Assembly and decreed that officials from all regions should select virtuous monks. Within a month, high-ranking monks from all over the country had gathered in Chang'an. Emperor Taizong also ordered Wei Wei and others to elect a chief monk. After careful selection, a highly virtuous monk was chosen, who was none other than Master Xuanzang. Master Xuanzang's birth name was Jiang Lu, and there was a poignant story behind this name. During the Tang dynasty, Emperor Gaozu Liyuan listened to the advice of his ministers and established examination halls to select talented individuals. There was a talented scholar named Chen Guangrui in Haizhou, who went to the capital to take the imperial examination and achieved the highest rank. Emperor Gaozu issued a decree, appointing Chen Guangrui as the magistrate of Jiangzhou and ordered him to set out for his new post as soon as possible. Chen Guangrui bid farewell to his parents-in-law and took Lady Wen with him to Jiangzhou, while his wife, Mrs. Zhang, accompanied them. After traveling for several days, they arrived at a guest house owned by the Lu family. Suddenly, Mrs. Zhang fell ill and said to Chen Guangrui, I am feeling unwell. Let's stay at the inn for a few days, before continuing our journey. Chen Guangrui obeyed her instructions. The next morning, Chen Guangrui saw someone selling a golden carp in front of the inn, so he bought it. When he returned to the room, he noticed that the carp was blinking its eyes incessantly. Surprised, Chen Guangrui thought, It is said that fish and snakes that blink their eyes are not ordinary creatures.